Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Fun with Dumb. I'm implementing these one-on-one guests again like we used to do on Fun with Dumb because during a couple of months of quarantine, it was hard to get guests in general, so I started doing a lot of Zoom ones. I was doing the regular crew that I'm usually around with, of course, COVID-safe squad of people that we did co-host with, but I wanted to start bringing in guests again, and this particular guest was part of an episode that was legendary on the Fun with Dumb catalog
that we still have to replicate at some point.
We will, and it was the Bobby episode, which we had Bobby Hundreds right here, and we had Bobby Lee, the comedian. Bobby Lee has like multiple hit podcasts right now, so he's a very popular dude in the podcast space. But we're gonna make that happen. Maybe for the 100th or 150. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
What is it about Bobby that people love his podcasts? Bobby Lee.
Yeah. I mean, it's Bobby. Bobby is just an energy, a force.
I feel like I've heard so much of what he has to say, but every time he records a new episode of anything, it's brand new all over again.
Yeah.
I'm like, I never heard that story. How does this guy have so many crazy, like every single day of his life was an adventure?
And I think Bobby doesn't even come in with any research of any sort.
I
don't see him as the guy who just has facts on his guests,
Yeah.
But he does have tons of stories, and he has so many experiences with these dudes because he's an OG in the game too. And
yeah.
He's done comedy for so long, and OG in the Asian world too. But he's fucking funny, and then
so good.
He has his girl with him right there, so I feel like those kind of energies keep him in check and call him out on things, and he's comfortable with that because he has relationships with his squad.
Yeah.
Shit is amazing. But today's guest, Bobby Hundreds, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, no in studio clapping. Okay, thanks guys. I like the in studio, even if it's like 3 or 4 people. I like that.
It sounds good.
It kind of keeps the energy going, 'cause
Yeah.
we do that on the gray area, the PAs, just a couple of people on the crew just clap to keep the energy going.
Yeah, I like it.
First and foremost, man, how are you?
I'm good. I think that's such a large and overwhelming question these days.
I know.
It's like, how are you? And we used to use it as like casual greeting.
It didn't
What's
mean
up?
shit.
It didn't mean shit. It's just like,
mean
what do
shit.
you mean? How am I doing? Like, I'm fine. Like, everyone's fine.
Yeah.
If we're not fine, we're okay. And now you really have to think about that question because it fluctuates day to day, and it's this year has just been highs and lows.
Right.
So I don't even know. I feel like my bar has dropped so low that my standard of what is normal or passing is probably completely off calibration from what it was like a year ago. But I think I'm okay right now.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me last year to judge and kind of frame how my life looks at this point, I'd be like, yo, that doesn't sound right. But
is your initial feeling when someone asks you like, how are you? Is it like, actually not bad, or is it kind of like, god damn,
dude, sometimes it's bad.
It is, yeah.
It's always bad, and I've never felt this way my entire life. I've never had what some people call the Sunday scaries or like the Monday blues or whatever. I've never had that. Like when the weekend is kind of nearing its end, I'm really excited to get back to work.
Right.
And I want Monday to come. I can't wait for it. And something changed this year, like at some point midsummer, where I really started to dread Mondays. And so Mondays are really hard for me, and then it takes me a while to like wind up into Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and probably by like tomorrow I start feeling myself again into the weekend. But I can't even figure out why that is. And I think maybe part of it has to do with the week. It used to mean something different than the weekend. Like there was an actual distinction between what Sunday and Monday was, and now it just feels like this Mobius strip of a week that's been going on and on and on.
And is that because the work environment as a whole globally has changed in a way, or no?
Yeah, I think it's just that, and like everything has changed, and social relationships have changed. And when I start to really think about, I mean, it's bad out there.
Yeah,
it is. Like if you actually take the time to think about where we are, like we are that cartoon dog in the fire. Right? And we think of we take everything into context and consideration of like, this is actually completely abnormal. This is wild. And again, like if we went back to January, December and told ourselves, this is what the world's going to look like, this is what your life's going to look like, your relationships, your work, you'd be completely freaked out. We've kind of inched into it, one toe at a time, and now we're here. But when you actually remove yourself and look at it from above, you're like, this is really gnarly and heavy stuff, And thank God that we have our relationships, hopefully people listening and watching this, like you have close relationships with friends and family who are there to help you feel somewhat balanced in life.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that, I don't know, like it would be really difficult.
I was curious about how your work has changed and your relationship with your work and maybe your family too. You know? Just because you cover so much and there's so much going on.
Yeah.
So your work kind of doesn't stop really at that point.
Yeah. We're all of that generation.
Yeah.
Where our work is our life. I had no boundaries, and when I would get asked that, how do you balance your life and your personal life and your work, and how do you maintain that? And I always said, I don't. It's impossible. The only way I know how to deal with it is by surrounding myself with people who are really empathetic and understanding and forgiving. Like my wife is very forgiving when I'm like, I have to leave for 2 weeks. I'm going to Paris for Fashion Week or whatever. See you later. And I work till midnight again for the 400th day in a row. And to my kids as well. My kids get it, and so I have these friends and family members who are like very, very accommodating to it.
Right.
So that's how I dealt with it up till now. But what this year really showed me and allowed me to see was that, I was drowning, man. Like we were all drowning. We're drowning in our work. We're drowning in the noise of what's happening online. We're drowning in the glut of information and news. Right. There's always another crisis. There really is. But, for us to be drowning in all this information, it's really hard and taxing on us. And for us to actually take a year off to wake up and smell the roses and just kind of like get a lay of the land has been, whether we appreciate it or not, it's actually been probably really helpful for you in the long run.
Just mental health wise, you mean, for everybody?
Mental health wise, also just taking stock of friendships, like what friends and relationships you need in your life, like taking stock of what work is most important and how to optimize your work approach, right? Like, do we have to do everything, or do we have to do specific things that are more meaningful and that have more mileage in the end,
It is the wokest year for this generation, isn't it? Like,
I hope it is.
They're in their lifetime, and this generation.
I hope it is. I think people are, I was just talking about this earlier with a friend. I was kind of hoping in a way that streetwear, this is the industry I come from. For people who don't know what I do, I'm a clothing designer. I run a streetwear brand. And part of me in the middle of all this was like, I hope people kind of wake up and realize there's more to life than streetwear. And in a way, like maybe our market will kind of downshift a little bit and people will prioritize more personal relationships or contributing to the community or standing up for important causes.
And I noticed you were
issues.
encouraging that through your social media outlet, that message.
I've always been, and I think especially this year, I was like, this is the time for us to really put that under the microscope. Like, let's emphasize that. And it did, but it also, for other reasons, streetwear has become even more popular. And commercial,
has it?
Yes.
I did not know this.
Consumption and commerce has become
e-commerce a lot for sure.
Just exploded.
Right.
And a lot of people are surprised to hear that because they're like, "Oh, how's business?" I'm like, "Best year we've ever had."
Wow.
And we're not alone. Many brands, especially if they sell direct, are just crushing it. Kind of behind the scenes. Number of reasons for that. Number one, there's a lot of unemployment money floating around, right? Number two, our demographic, which is young people, have historically, since the beginning of time, have always felt invincible, right?
Yeah.
So they feel like they are outside of COVID. How many young people do I know, friends, people who work with me, just kids that I'm around, that have gone through COVID and felt like it was nothing, and did not understand the gravity of even when they were suffering from the disease. They were just like, oh yeah, it's just annoying I have COVID right now. And it's just like they don't even realize like what they're holding on to.
Right.
So like it doesn't mean the same thing to them. So they don't have the same anxiety and the concern. And if anything, like my generation, which is, I don't know where I fall. I'm somewhere between a millennial and I guess I'm on the tail end of a millennial or whatever it is, but we're the most screwed because the kids don't care, the young kids, and then the old people, like our parents. I don't know about. Well, your mom, I saw her; she actually wore a mask and stuff. My parents don't wear masks. Like they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't believe in it. Like they just don't think any of it is. They're like, we've been through hell. Like we immigrated here, so we don't care. So I don't know where I was going with all that, but what I was saying was that how streetwear has thrived is that you have unemployment money coming in. You have a generation of young people who they don't feel the same way or have the same concerns as we do. So they're kind of open to participating in the economy, buying stuff. And then third, they have nowhere else to spend their money right now. Right. So like my audience is used to going to your concerts. They're used to going to Coachella Festival, restaurants, going out or on the weekend, spending hundreds of dollars, going to the club, buying drinks, going on dates, Ubers, right? They don't do that anymore. So here's like a few $100 a week, and you have to spend it somewhere. Where are you going to spend it? Video games, drugs, clothes, sneakers. And so the sneaker game is just on a whole nother level right now. Streetwear's on a whole nother level.
Drug dealers are booming still.
Can't keep up. And drug dealers booming. So that's from a business perspective, it's really peculiar to see where the winners and the losers lie. Right. It's kind of like when a wildfire moves into a neighborhood and it leaves, 5 houses burned down to ashes, and then for whatever reason, there's the one in the corner that's still standing.
Did you know that it was gonna head that direction or do well? No,
none of us.
You didn't predict that.
None of us predicted it, and I still can't predict it. I can't say that that's how it's gonna sustain, tomorrow and next week. I have no idea.
That's the one thing we learned is everything is so unsure. Like the world can change so quickly.
So every day we are trying to, as a business, trying to make the most of it, right? And conserve. Everyone's like, dude, you guys are killing right now. So I'm sure you're just loving life and taking your gas off, easing off the gas. And I'm like, oh, no. Because this can all drop off a cliff again tomorrow.
The craziest thing, my dad, I'm like a downtown LA kid. A lot of Korean families had downtown businesses in downtown Los Angeles with like, the fashion clothing, fast fashion shit. Toy District. My dad had like a shop in the Toy District when we immigrated here when I was 3. And, he did all right. Not like crazy, but we made good money. And then the last like 10 years, because he didn't transition into e-commerce. Just completely, just fucked up. Borrow money from me every year, all this stuff. And then this past couple of months through COVID, he started doing mask sales. And he came back. And like got out of bankruptcy and like paid all his debts off. And because I checked, we have dinner once in a while, and he's always complaining about his business is done. He's about to sell this thing, and he's like needs to borrow money. Last like a month, I saw him. He's like, having the masks are flying off the shelves. So he's been pushing crazy mask units. And he saved his unit literally through this pandemic. It's kind of wild.
I've heard many similar stories, especially in the direct-to-consumer e-com world. There's another good friend of ours who was I'm not going to say who it is, but was on really tough times. And was very early in catching the mask thing, was like, no one is supplying this. I can actually manufacture and made millions in a week.
Wow.
Right? And saved, paid off debts for years and is making sure that the business is around for a while. Then you have other friends who were just killing it before all this, right? Couldn't be stopped. A lot of younger streetwear brands, that's kind of the name of the game in streetwear. So everyone always wants to know who's like new and next. So it's like the young kids who are always hottest, right?
Right.
But they are having not all of them, but a lot of them are having really hard time in this pandemic, right? Because most of them were energized by being out, right? Like being out at the parties, being on the nightlife scene, being affiliated with certain celebrities, concerts, popping up, like that kind of a life. If that doesn't exist anymore, and then you don't have the business infrastructure to kind of weather this really long drought that we're in, it's like, you went from being like this really cool, noisy, hype-filled machine to it's really hard to sustain that over time. The only ones who seem to be doing really well with it are brands that are more established as businesses and have some kind of an infrastructure set up to where like it's already a well-oiled machine. So it is weird, the winners and losers.
How does it feel? Like, masks were pretty common in Asia already. But just being the new item of clothing that just gets thrown into the system. Is that weird as somebody who's in fashion?
It's not
but things like that happen, right? In history of clothing and stuff.
There's always something new. I felt more uncomfortable with dad hats. You know,
Yeah.
like my
When dad
fat
hats
Korean
came in.
head didn't fit into a dad hat, and then all
Right.
of a sudden for 2 years, that's like all people wanted to wear was a dad hat, and I was like,
I couldn't. That's true.
Okay,
Is that a
I'm like-
Korean thing that don't agree with the dad
the
hats
dad
or
hats
what?
they don't fit our round. We talked a little bit
The
about
five
this in our
panels
podcast.
don't work with me either. I need an extra
it's
panel or
it's
something.
the head shape. I'm good with a trucker,
Yeah,
a
the
good
truckers
good
work.
deep trucker.
Yeah.
A New Era fitted. Thank God the New Era fitteds are coming back for our shaped heads.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've just had to freestyle it with my hair. But I was more uncomfortable with those kinds of fashion choices, or like jogger pants. Like when jogger pants were a thing, I've never worn a pair of jogger pants. That bothered me more than a mask. I love masks, to be honest. I've been joggers, no, but masks, yes.
Yeah.
I would start the anti-jogger movement any day.
Right.
Like I'll show up on the steps of City Hall protesting that shit. But the
So
mask
masks are a
thing-
thing now, and there's
Yeah.
are designer companies and stuff making masks or what?
It seems like most brands have made some kind of
Yeah.
so. This is what we've realized too. We were pretty early on in making masks because everyone was like, "Look, there's a real need for like just a cool looking mask." At
Yeah.
first, all that was offered N95s, the blue surgical
Right.
masks, and people were like, "If I'm gonna look, I want my drip to look a certain way, okay, fine, we'll make a mask that's branded on the hundreds." And we did that, and then I think we all collectively, like on the brand side and the consumer side, realized at a certain point, just give us the normal masks, like the medical masks, the disposable, like these kinds. Like we don't need to get all fashion forward with it.
Yeah.
And so now what we're doing as a brand is we're starting to just make normal blue masks like that.
Oh, really?
Like going directly to the company,
Right.
making sure because look, they've spent years mastering this
Right.
situation. I'm not going to come in and innovate in the space.
Yeah, because
You
a
know?
lot of the masks the clothing company sells, you're supposed to wear those over these.
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
And that's already an
It's just
extra
like-
layer of hotness
And
that
it's,
you got to
it's
deal
like
with.
160 degrees outside, so nobody's trying to do that. I'd rather
Yeah.
let the mask companies do the mask thing, and then we'll just kind of co-brand it somewhere. Maybe we'll like change like the string color or something like
Yeah.
that. But other than that, like just give us a normal mask. Like I don't want to mess with it.
All right, wait, hold on. Let me just acknowledge this chat real quick. I want everybody to hit us up on the Discords.
What's a big head?
Yeah, Big Head Gang Gang. I want everybody to join the Discord, and I want get some questions directly from you guys to Bobby. We're going to talk for a little longer, and then we'll get to the questions. But join the Discord right now. Wait in the waiting room, and then we will get you guys in. Let me look at the chat here. Masks, the new necessary accessory. Okay, that's a bar right there. My Korean fathead can't fit 5 panels either.
We need like 7 or 11 panels.
Tony does rock the dad. Do you rock dad hats? No, that's not a dad hat.
That
yeah.
is in between. That's
an
just
uncle-
a modern
that's an
baseball.
uncle
Yeah, that
joint.
is.
That's an uncle joint. But yeah, please join the chat. We'd love to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you about something because I heard another podcast you were on, and you were talking about like growing up, when you were the minority and you got into skateboarding because that was like a
Yeah.
minority culture.
Yeah.
What do you think that is now?
Ooh, yeah, there was a point, I think, in the last 10 years where I was questioning whether the underground still exists.
Yeah.
So we're talking really about whether there is some semblance of a subculture underground,
Right.
that can, actually live somewhere out there. I didn't think it was possible with the internet, like the way the internet was moving. I was like, oh, all subcultures are exposed, so
Right.
anybody can fall in. And then I was proved just woefully wrong, like over the last couple of years, learning things every day. In fact, I think there's more subcultures and more niche cultures than ever because of the way that the internet is set up.
Right.
There's billions and billions of different little things, pockets, statements, memes, things that are happening that I'm always, if you are off the internet for one day, you're going to miss,
Right.
And a subculture doesn't have a life on it. Subculture can last 3 years. It can last 3 months, 3 minutes. There could have been a moment right there where that could have really moved people. And so those are constantly happening. I feel like they are proliferating more than ever. There's, if you want to talk about,
And is it more
even-
virtual, would you say? Like, does it feel more virtual as
Yeah.
opposed to like going out to a little gig?
Yeah,
or,
it's different.
Yeah.
The way that we had experienced subcultures was going to a backpack rap show or like, a battle thing or like a skate thing. We hide behind it. Yeah, like maybe that's different, but our lives are different. We are online, something like 80% more than we were at the beginning of the year. Like, we basically have like doubled the amount of time we spend online as a people, right? So more of our lives are in there, which is also another reason why online sales are up, because we are just participating in e-commerce more. Like, the line between IRL and URL, like virtual and real, is pretty much vanished at this point. Like, what is the difference? There used to be a hard line, especially when it came to political and social issues, right? You were a certain way in real life, and then online you could profess a certain type of ideology. And those, over the last 4 years, but really the last like year, have come to a head where now we are one and the same out in public, right? And we are willing to have those conversations out in public with people, or if it's not a conversation, a violent altercation, one or the other, but it's happening now. So there is no more, all the chaos is happening in a 4chan or a subreddit or something. No, it's happening actually on Main Street. You're watching it happen live. Like, so I think it's all just one and the same, and we're at this point now where, what is the difference between the internet and what's happening in the world? It's just that we live digital lives. We're already there.
True. I was just thinking about the AZN movement and how there's like this online virtual AZN community of Asians that embrace that like late 90s, early 2000s AZN culture. Yeah. With all those images, and there's like this e-girl, e-boy kind of aesthetic to it, to the images and everything. Yeah. And that show was mad interesting. And even talking to you about it, because you did a whole collaboration with K-Swiss, was it, or something?
The Fila project? Yes.
With Fila, where you took the whole aesthetic of the AZN movement back then. And I find that interesting because even in your pod, I mean, as you talk about being this like outsider within your community, inside your own community, it could be like Asian or whatnot. Like, how do you come back to like really appreciating that culture that maybe like you felt like you were pushed out of for a little bit, or an outsider in? Because I feel like that happened to both of us. Like, me too. Like, I'm from K-Town. I grew up, I was around a lot of Koreans, but I was like the weirdo amongst the Koreans. I was into skateboarding, I was into like punk rock and indie rock and underground hip hop. And all the kids here were like just straight Pac, like white tees, K-Swisses, and they were cool. They were like gangsters and shit, and I was not that, And I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of resentment early on. It wasn't, but all of a sudden, like, if people saw Dumbfounded the brand, they'd be like, "This fool reps for the Asians hard." Like, at what point has that happened for you, or did you always kind of have the Asian pride in you at some point?
No, absolutely not.
That's what I thought. So I was like, okay.
No, I really envy Asian Americans growing up in this time, where they feel like they can really own, and they can actually see themselves too, right? Like, they're visible to look out and see yourself represented, whether it's in a podcast or on primetime television, in a movie, music. You can actually see faces that look like yours. And so if you would ask me this in high school, I'd always, I'm proud of being Asian. Really, was I? I don't know. I don't think to the extent that I am now. I actually think so. I have two boys. They're 11 and 8 now. They actually just turned 11 and 8 this summer. And when my sons were born was the first time that I really took ownership of being Asian American. Like, I didn't realize how culturally white and Americanized, and how I really was not in touch with my culture, and I always stood behind this defense of like, I'm like a terrible Asian because I don't speak my language, and I just don't have a lot of Asian friends, and every girl I've ever dated was white or brown or black. Like, I never had any interest in Asian women, so I've just been about Asian. It was just like a defense mechanism, and all of that was just because I think I felt like I was being kind of ostracized by my own community. Like, they wanted nothing to do with me. I do remember being attracted to Asian girls growing up, and they're just like, nah, like, you're whitewashed. Like, you hang out with the skaters. Like, you only go for like blonde cheerleader girls. And I'm like, okay. And then all like the Korean dudes were just like, dude, you're like whitewashed kid, you go to punk shows and stuff. Like, you're not a part of us. And so after a while, I was like, where's my where am I? You know, like where do I fit into all that? But I still had an opinion and appreciation for a lot of things that were happening within Asian subcultures.
Yeah.
That I thought was really cool.
You
But I
did. You
just
thought the
didn't.
AZN stuff was cool?
I
Like,
thought it was cool. I just
Yeah.
didn't have an inroads to it. You know, I was like looking at all the cars. I was like, oh, Integras and Preludes
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
this stuff. I was
yeah.
like, that's really cool. I don't have an inroads because I hang out over here where it was so segmented and cliquey in the 90s where if you were a punk kid, like you didn't listen to metal. You know, the Heschers listen to metal. I'm like, but I like some metal. No, you're a punk kid. Like you guys beef. You know, the jocks were over here. The jocks did not mess with the skaters.
did it also have something to do with, like, did you like being the only Asian kid in that scene? Because sometimes, like, that part of it made
Yeah.
me kind of distant from, like, the other Asians. Because I liked being, like, oh, I'm different. You know, like,
Right.
you know, when you're a teenager, too, you're like, I'm different.
Oh,
you
right,
know?
right. I'm not like, because Asian Americans, especially at that time, were so homogenized.
Right.
And would do everything in packs. Like once I remember I was really early into snowboarding, the kind of like skate oriented style of snowboarding at Snow Summit, Big Bear in the early 90s. And the only other Asian American kid on the mountain was Steve Aoki. And I remember Steve, he had bleached hair like the way my hair looks like right now. And he was with a bunch of white kids. I was like, yo, there's another Asian kid here. And that kid ended up being Steve Aoki. And for years, I was always going up snowboarding, you know, my white friends, some
Is that
black
when the
friends.
Invisible War started?
Yeah, and then we start, and then, yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, with Steve, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other
That's
episode.
another. Go check out the other episode for that reference.
Which is ongoing, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just remember the first time I saw not one other Asian American or Korean American person on the slopes, you know, on the ski hill. It was like 11 popped up at the same time, you know? And then the same thing happened when I was deep into raving in the early 90s, coming out here for Magic Wednesdays. Like LA had just had a really great warehouse scene, the Alexandria Hotel and all this stuff. And I remember, oh my God, there's like 7 K-Town clubbing guys in like white
Right.
shirts with like the black pants.
That was big, yeah.
And I was like, what are Koreans doing here? That's weird, you know? And then the next week there was like 20 more, and then there was like
So you saw it
300
right
more.
when it was starting to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the rave population became like half Asian American kids,
Yeah.
right? In the later half of the 90s, and then I was kind of like tapped out of it. So there was a part of that. I think I just had such an estranged relationship with my racial identity coming from so many different places, you know, and not proud of it at all. I think I'm also, again, once I had children and I have full Asian American boys, you know, and I just realized, first of all, how beautiful they are, how complex and complicated they are as people,
Right.
how proud I was of them, and how proud I was that we were all Asian, like in this world, and having these conversations with them where I'm like, hey, like I didn't grow up in a space where I was proud to be this, but
Right.
this is why we should be proud, you know, this is
Yeah.
what half the world looks like, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we've accomplished. This is what we've contributed to society. This is how we can be allied to other people. You know, all these things. I was like, dude, we're the best. Honestly, like I just,
Yeah.
if you had asked me in my teenage years, oh, would you choose to be Asian? I'd be like, no. Like I would, in a heartbeat, I would choose to be like, if I could pick my race right now, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be Asian. You know, in the mid '90s, I was like, get me out of here. Right now, if you'd ask me, I really would not choose to be any other race. Like I love being Asian American
Right.
and Korean, and so it took me a long time to figure that out. I feel horrible about it in a lot of ways because I think there are a lot of missed opportunities in my work to represent more properly for
Right.
my people, and I've tried to do that more and more over the years.
I mean, you have. I mean, it seems like Asians have obviously been drawn to streetwear.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is kind of weird, right? The way you started, and now you're in this space that so many Asians are involved in.
Yeah, it is. It is super cool. There's a lot of Asians in this. The Filipinos, I gotta say, the Filipinos were the first. Yeah, before
They are the OG Asians of culture.
of culture,
Yeah.
of like hip hop culture,
Yep.
of sneaker culture.
Filipino kid put me onto all the things I love today.
Yes.
Like real talk.
Yeah,
Or the
they had
intro.
such, like the Japanese, they had the Filipino, like the Americans, maybe, I don't know, even in the Philippines, but the Filipinos had such an appreciation for product and for culture and identifying with brand in a way where nobody else felt like that. So if you look at the early years, in early 2000s and the hundreds, a large segment of our audience was Filipino. You know,
Yeah.
like those were like the hardcore fans, and especially out of the Bay, obviously. Like the Daly
What
City
is it? What
kids
is it
and
about Filipinos? You think that they're just up on stuff so early? They're literally the DJs of like every every
I don't-
culture, like every pop culture thing, like that's hot.
something about
They're breaking records and shit.
there didn't seem to be any type of stigma associated with being into this stuff in a way of like, for example, the moms and dads would be in line with the kids, right? Like I forget this one kid, this guy, maybe his name was like Ralph or something. He was like a 45, 50-year-old nurse that would show up after his shift with his 3 kids, and he'd be buying as well.
Yeah.
And I thought that was strange at the time, where I was like, that's weird. The kids are into what their dad is. The dad's into what the kids are into. Dude, they're so far ahead of it. Now that's how everybody thinks. I'm a dad. I'm still into this stuff. I'm going to be shopping with my kid too.
Right.
But they just had no, I just feel like they had less judgment around it, where my parents, most other parents would be like, what are you guys doing? You're just wasting all this money. What is it about? But maybe they were just more open-minded. I can't speak for it. I'm not Filipino. A lot of people think I'm Filipino, but I can't speak for it. But they just seemed much more open-minded to how the culture worked. Or maybe it had to do with Imelda Marcos and her having like the biggest sneaker collection of all time.
Also Filipinos they can get lumped up with the Latinos too.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
just different areas.
Yeah,
You know,
they can-
They're like chameleons.
They are.
Like, they can get in.
Asians already are kind of shapeshifters. Like
Yeah.
that's what Dave Cho and I used to always talk about. He's just like, dude, we're shapeshifters.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
kind of like mold to anybody. Filipinos like do it the best, you know.
Right,
like
right,
they
right.
can really. They somehow like some of the best skateboarders.
That's the best gateway
Willie
Asian.
Santos, like,
That's the best
the
gateway.
best gateway Asian is a Filipino.
One thing you mentioned actually is interesting because you talk about how, you're into all this big hit stuff now, but it's not really being into big hit stuff. It's just being into the stuff that's it's since it's mainstream. Like
Yeah.
any generation that's into that is gonna still be into them when they get older. And that makes me think of like, what's like our generation above us, that was a thing they did when they were young that they still carried on to their older as a big kid, as an older person.
The generation above us, what are they still
I'm just trying to think,
into?
'cause-
I mean, maybe like rap music.
right,
Like
old school rap,
school
music.
rap, right?
Yeah.
You go to
Like Curtis Blow and shit like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
you go to any, white girl's wedding who's like 40 and up, and they're still playing like 90s rap music at the wedding, and you're like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
crazy. How did that carry on? Out of everything, they discarded all their fashion choices from the 90s and everything, but the music stuck.
Interesting,
Right?
yeah.
That's the power of music. Yeah.
Music is, I guess, the main thing.
Yeah, music has always been on the front lines of pushing whatever cultural movement is behind it, And so someone asked me this yesterday. They said, is streetwear, right now there's this really incredible movement going on in streetwear where there's more of a focus and a reminder that a large part of this is owed to Black people, right? Black
Right,
communities.
right.
Even if they haven't had the ownership, right, they were pivotal in a lot of these things happening. So now there's a push for more Black ownership, emphasis on Black-owned streetwear brands. And someone asked me yesterday, is that a trend? Are people just capitalizing on this moment? Or are we just talking about it because it's BLM right now? I was like, I don't really think so, because if you remember in the 90s, a lot of the rhetoric around rap was, this is a trend, right?
Right.
Larger, more mainstream music industry, just pop culture in general was like, this is cool for right now, but it's going to disappear. It didn't ever disappear. In fact, it overtook pop culture, pop music.
And it was
now-
very pro-Black, too.
and it was super
Yeah,
pro-Black,
yeah.
and it was always exactly, and it pushed, 30, 40 years later, now it's the same thing as pop music, right? It's rap music, the same thing as pop culture. Like, my kids think music is rap. Like, they
Right.
don't even know when they talk to, they'll talk about me, oh,
That's- yeah,
daddy
that's
likes
funny.
rock, but we like music, And I'm like,
Yo, that's
rock is
amazing.
wait, what? This is where it all, no, they're like, rap is music.
It's like when I hear a rapper being like, I like Chinese girls and I like Asians too. Which you hear all. I remember as growing up always hearing Asian thrown into when they list off the Asians and then they go Asians too.
Chinese and Asian.
That's amazing though. That they think just rap is music.
Rap
That's
is music,
hilarious.
right? And entertainers are Black entertainers. Like, athletes are Black athletes. Like, everyone that's the face of culture is Black, and coming from Black culture and Black history. And so I really do believe that in terms of ownership and how business goes, we're going to see the same thing in like 20, 30, 40 years. It'll be completely normal for Black owners to just be on like the face of everything, and especially in business, to be leading the charge. Now it's like you can point to how many Black faces there are that are in charge of like powerful corporations and ownership, right? Like there's like an Instagram dedicated to what do the boards of companies look like, and like there's nary a Black person. There's like one light-skinned woman somewhere in the mix. I don't think that's going to be the case. I really hope it's not, but I really don't think it's going to be the case for this generation because it's so normalized. Like, again, you got to remember, like, my kids are growing up in a world where it's totally normal to have a Black president, right? For 8 years, they had a Black president. And so for our generation, that was, like, mind-blowing.
Right.
For them, it's like, why isn't that possible? Right? And that's the perspective. That's the beautiful part about having children, is always seeing the world how they look at it. I just get down on their level, and I'm like, right, it's totally normal for two Korean guys to be sitting down and having podcasts with everyone listening and not even considering the fact that they're Korean or anything. That's normal.
Yeah.
I can do that too. They watch TV. My younger son's favorite person in the world is Guava Juice, this YouTube personality, right?
Oh, yeah. I know,
right?
I know.
You know Guava Juice,
he knows
right?
his YouTube shit. So.
Obsessed with Guava Juice. Like, he does everything Guava Juice tells him to do. It's completely normal to him. That's his favorite person. My favorite person is Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
But I looked at him and I was like, I'm never going to be in a movie because I don't look like that guy. I don't know anyone, you know, like, I don't come from that world. Everyone in my family doesn't look like that. I'm not even in the movie. I'm not in Back to the Future, you know?
Yeah.
So my kids are growing up saying, like, my favorite person on YouTube looks like this. I can be like that too.
That's true.
Right?
That's why representation matters.
That's why it matters.
Let's take a look here. It's nice how you guys talk about real life issues. That just tells you that we've been talking about bullshit for the last couple of months. Too white for the Asian kids, too Asian for the white kids. Did you feel like that?
I did feel like that, and I own it, and I love it. I love being in the cracks.
90s rap aged so well. Do you agree?
Yeah, to someone my age. I play that music for my kids, and they're not into it.
I definitely think that's Wax Stereo has to be around our age to say something like that for
easy
sure.
for us to say.
Yeah. It's fine. Filipino pride. Let's fucking go. Shout out to the Filipinos, of course. All right. Let me see the newer chat. It's from the top, right, Tony? Right here. Guava juice is found its cousin. Yeah, you guys can ask questions in the chat too. I'll be happy to ask those for you. One thing I was gonna ask you though, because we, with the recent BLM movement and everything, there's been a huge push to give credit, obviously, to the pioneers that are black but how do you think relations are with between other people, POC communities? You know, because obviously there's white and black, but there's all this other relations.
Yeah,
that we don't talk about a lot because people think POC is one thing, and it's really not.
It's really not.
You know?
And even amongst Asian Americans,
exactly.
Right? This is, everyone knows this by now. It's 101, but we're all different.
Yeah,
and we come from backgrounds where we hate each other more than anything. Right?
Yeah, and it's tough. Even that this is something that I've been going to looking at myself because I've always been like, I'm down.
Yeah.
You know, and all of us, because we're all part of this culture that we're part of a lot of things that are black culture with hip hop and everything. But I feel like in the community, in the scene, we're all cool. You know what I'm saying? But I look on Instagrams and there's all these meme accounts with Asian ones, world stars, the black meme accounts to the Asian meme accounts. And there's a lot of divide and hate between communities. You know, and things getting shared that are like things that we don't see every day. Because when we're lucky not to experience it every day, but there's things going on. You know, whether it's like xenophobic attacks to you just see the relations between Asians and blacks, or even Latinos. Really, you know, in LA has a history between the black and Latino community too, gang wars between two. Do you think? I mean, I definitely think we're making progress in it. You know, but how do you feel about everything?
I think this is the uncomfortable moment where we're putting everything out on the table. I remember, when there used to be a time when we would say, oh, it would be a cool superhero power to be able to read everybody's minds and what they really think. And now you can do that because we have Twitter. And everyone just volunteers how they're feeling about everything now. So you can read everybody's minds.
Right.
I like when we're considering someone to work with, just like from a brand level. And I'm like, how do they stand on political issues? No problem. Let me just scrub their social real quick. And like, there's a BLM square. Okay, a photo of John Lewis. All right, we're good. So like everything is transparent. We can know everything about everybody now.
Right.
So this is the uncomfortable moment where we used to not talk about religion and politics at the dinner table, and now we're all just putting it on the dinner table, and it's ugly because we haven't talked about it. We didn't know how to talk about it for a very long time. And so it's going to take some work getting through. Maybe that's our lifetime's work. I don't know if this is going to end in 2 years, 4 years. It's like, this really is not Trump. This is symptomatic of Trump, right? So, I think we have a long stretch ahead of us where we're going to have to navigate a lot of these discussions and figure it out. I just hope that people can understand, or at least agree on the point that people can be right or wrong. It doesn't mean that they're good or bad. There's a distinction between that. Like, I genuinely believe that there are not a lot of like truly bad, like black-hearted people out there. I just finished this docuseries on HBO called Gone in the Dark. It's about Michelle McNamara and the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer is a bad person. I think we can all agree. He raped 50 women on top of all these people he murdered. That's a pretty bad person. But if someone has differing social views from you, even if the ramifications of those views are quite violent, there is a part of me that wonders if they don't appreciate how violent that thought is, you know? And so not judging them based off of that's a bad person for believing that way. Can we leave room to allow them just to consider them as being wrong? And we can help steer them to get to more of a right side. So that just takes a lot of work. The problem right now is that the way the internet is set up, the way the media is set up, the algorithms, just our patience and our scope of the world, especially in a pandemic when we're isolated, is to pull us apart more than ever and polarize us. And so we have to fight harder than ever to find common ground to talk. For sure. Right? I'm actually okay with living in a society. In fact, I want to live in a society where people have different points of view. Right? Someone who comes from rural, like the backwater Florida, I kind of expect them to have a different view from me, who's, living in LA for the last 20 years, pretty liberal, a brown person. I don't think that they're a bad person for some of their views, but I think I can learn a lot, right? Like, I think it's intended for us to have all these different kinds of viewpoints. That's like the gray area where people feel like, no, everyone has to be on the same page with every single political issue. We don't really want that. That's not how it works. Like, you can't have good without bad. We can't have negotiations and discussions. Like, I just learned so much from people who have different points of view, even if they're entirely wrong. Like, it helps me build empathy for them to get them to a place where they're on my side, or they can see the way that see the life the way that I look at it,
How is like how has this moment been with you and your kids? Like, how do you teach what's going on right now? How do you make them feel as young Asian kids in school? Because I can only imagine what the fuck is going down at school with kids, between kids.
It's a little wild. It was a little wild. I wonder if they had actually been within the physical context of a school this year, how that would have been. But a lot of it's happening online. I hear my kids talking about it when they're playing Fortnite, and they're talking to kids about a lot of these social issues in BLM. Fortnite, even had like a cop car being burned and like BLM statements being made,
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
As they were playing the game, my kids were just like, Daddy, are you seeing this happening? I'm like, that's really interesting. So my theme of 2020 and most of my conversations, business relationships, and around my family is no judgment. Right? We are not going to judge how people react towards the pandemic, right? A lot of people are freaking out. A lot of people feel a certain way. Like, let's just listen to how people feel right now. So it's the same thing also with a lot of the social issues, political issues that are coming up. My kid will, come home, or I'll come home, and my kid will say something about like, oh, Daddy, so-and-so's dad, my friend's dad, he's a Trump supporter. Can you believe it? And I'm like, oh, I can't really believe that because he lives down the street, but is that bad? And he's like, of course that's bad. Daddy, it's Trump. He's a horrible person. I'm like, why is he a horrible person? Because he's bad, right? He's bad. I think he's not a good person, but have you done your research? You better be equipped to defend that position when that kid comes to you and says, my dad likes Trump and he's bad. Why? Because now you look like the fool. It actually just reinforced his beliefs that Trump's a good person if you're just like being judgy, right? So no judgment. Like, let's actually talk everything through. We're super transparent. We've always been this way with the kids, even since they were like first talking.
Yeah.
We talk about, just like how I'm talking right now to you about all this stuff, we do it in front of the kids and with the kids. We involve them. They watch the news. We talk through every issue, every, thing that comes up on the daily podcast every day. So there's always like some hot button issue that we're talking on that day. We talk about at the dinner table, and I'm like, how do you feel about that? And how did you come to that discussion? How did you come to that decision? I'm not trying to force feed them anything. I'm just trying to give them all the tools and ingredients because I'm like, in a few years, my 11-year-old in 7 years, I'm like, you're getting out of the house. I'm kicking you out. Yeah. And then you have to make your own decisions. And we may come to a point in our adult lives where we are at opposing ends, like the way I am with my dad. My dad and I couldn't be more polar opposites on the the political spectrum, right? And like, he won't even talk to me about fucking Parasite because he's like, that's socialist, right? Like any Korean drama I watch, I'm like, Itaewon Class is so good. He's just like, Itaewon Class, he's like, that's socialist, like that's that generation of like, so scared of like communism, socialism. What are you talking? Like when the riots were happening here in LA. Sorry, I'm talking so much.
No, I want to hear this.
When the riots were happening and they were at our doorstep, and a lot of people know this, they were watching that Saturday night. The riots ended, the protests ended, and the riots began on our doorstep at the corner of Fairfax and Rosewood. And my dad, I was actually with my dad while that was happening. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We had people on the street, on the ground. And, my dad is just talking. He's just like, look, all these looters and all these people, and like, they're going to steal from you. And my response to that was, it's okay, Papa. Like, they're going to steal. Right. And he was just like, that's your money. That's like your stuff. Yeah. And I said, if they have to steal it from me, they need it more than I do. Right. And that's how we talk about theft even within our house. Like, we have an alarm system. Like, yes, I'm protected at home. But the kids, that weekend, it got a little crazy. We lived near Santa Monica, police helicopters, lots of, rioting going on around the malls and stuff. And the kids were a little worried.
What do you think about your statement? Was it like, you're stupid?
Yeah, I mean, he knows. He's watched me my whole life. Like, this is how I felt when I was like 12 and 13. I grew up in punk. So I just come from this, like, I used to be way more far left, like, complete nihilist, anarchist. Right. Didn't believe in anything. I wanted the world to burn, which is the job of a teenager. You want the world to burn. Thank you for existing. Right. But I'm 40 now, and so like a lot of my views have adjusted because I have children, I have a business, I have people that I'm responsible for. But my dad just he doesn't understand, and we just always we talk it out, and then we get to a point where we just sit and we're like, you're not going to budge, I'm not going to budge. Okay. And are you a bad person? I don't think you're a bad person. Do I think you're wrong? Hell yeah, you're wrong. Right. But are you like a horrible person? No. There's so much that goes even into the biological makeup of who we are actually defines a lot of our political positions, right? Our socioeconomic, like there's so much experience to that it's very hard for me to judge most people and where they come from politically. Yeah. Like they may have just had really terrible experiences with people that make them feel that way towards certain people. I still think it's wrong, but if I were in their shoes, would I feel that way? I would like to think no. Right. I have no idea,
Yeah, I saw your statement about that, and you made that statement publicly on your IG and everything. Where is the future headed with Fairfax just alone, that street? Because
well, so that day was interesting because that Saturday, Fairfax was supposed to reopen. And so if the rioting had started 24 hours before, it would have actually been not as bad. But
interesting. I didn't know
all the stores had been emptied out since March.
They moved everything back in.
Dude, they moved everything back in the night before. We did too. Like
I did
12
not know
to
that.
18 hours before, we packed a store with inventory. Everything was glowing, pristine, immaculate. All the stores were stocked up and down the street. Wow. And I was watching the night before on Friday night. There was some rioting happening downtown, and I was like, tomorrow there's a protest happening in Pan Pacific Park. It is supposed to go towards Beverly Hills. Yep. There's no way the cops are going to let them into Beverly Hills. They're going to stop them. I was like, what's right around there? Fairfax. Where are they going to go?
Right.
Sneaker stores, obviously.
Right.
So I woke up the next morning and Ben and I, we called all our staff and all our crews and all the kids around us. And we just said, hey, just like take all the inventory out, like just take the inventory out of the store. And we were telling all the other guys up and down the street too. We were like, hey, take your inventory out. Like it's going to come up our way. And some people listened. Some people didn't really think it was going to be that big of a deal.
So you got all your inventory out?
We got all our inventory out. And for the large part, they left our store alone. There was like a lot of vandalism around it. Look, I don't know why. It's one of those things where some people got really heavily looted. Some were untouched. Like Huff got hit really bad. And then, like, the store next to it got nothing touched. So it just, where there was a moment or there's, like, a crack in the armor, people exploited it and they got what they got. I don't condone looting or theft by any means or crime by any means, but it helps to have an empathy and awareness of other people and their lives in order to make sense of a lot of what's going on.
We've talked about this a lot on our show. We've had multiple like BLM episodes, and I talk about the LA riots in particular, like in comparison, because the Korean community was so connected specifically for that one.
Yeah,
with Latasha and Hardy and everything. And,
and the rooftop Koreans.
Koreans
that the libertarians love,
which a lot of people glorified at the time. You know, me too.
Some people still.
Of course. And I think I took a step back and realized like really what that's doing, and just looked at everything, and it was like that's when I was really woke to that situation. Because it was so easy to glorify and be like, you're holding down your story, protecting it, but also you're like aiming it at a whole group of people, and it's like it was a whole thing. Before I go into that, let me just go into this chat real quick here. Everyone needs Bobby's level of empathy. Shout out A1 parenting. Look at that, parent points. Fortnite woke. Yeah. We are quiet because when Bobby speaks, you need to listen.
Oh, God.
Oh, shout out. Look, Bobby, they love you.
Tell that to my wife. She
Ask Bobby about the
heard
wife.
enough out of me.
Ask Bobby about the wife beater term. Do you call it wife beaters still? Because we talked about this the other day.
I think we did. Okay, I don't know anyone who still wears those.
I got one right here.
Yeah, there you have one. I don't know what we call that. I guess I would still call it a wife beater.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about
that is insane.
Yeah. We were just talking about this the other day because I was in my studio. My whole writing crew is all women. You know, and I was talking about wife beaters, God. And I was like, "Is that cool?" Like I said that, and they were like, "It's a wife beater."
It's a wife beater. Like, what do we call it?
Well, tank top. You can say tank
top. But it's
top.
not a tank
top. It's not really a tank
it's
top, right?
A ribbed tank top. I wonder. I don't know. That's some questions have no answers, and that's okay.
I don't know. It's a sleeveless top, dude. Okay. First of all, none of us condone wife beaters. Like,
look at Turtle Duck's comment.
What is it?
That transition between "tell that to my wife" and "what about wife?" We have no worry about that in my house because my wife can kick my ass easily. She's much stronger than me.
But that's an interesting thing because we're changing a lot of terms now as we're finding things problematic, right? Like, didn't they just find that the ice cream truck jingle is a racist song?
Yeah. And then there's like a large segment in the black community is like, no, we always knew that was racist. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, right? I have learned I thought I was woke. There's
a lot of stuff this past couple months that I learned about.
A few months where people were like, you know how this is, and I was just like, oh, what? I didn't know that, you know?
Well, why wasn't a lot of this stuff, it just wasn't shared or what? Like,
I just don't think the platform was there. I think that's the entire point, right?
I will say, I think Instagram has people who have learned to use Instagram better in the way they share information. Those like slides with little facts, like it's gone.
Like cool font treatments, nice color choices.
I said this last time. Shout out to the graphic designers because they're like killing it with those
generation
slides.
Of people who know how to market. right?
Interesting.
They
Yeah.
know how to sell an idea. They grew up being marketed to, so they took all that stuff that they were being subject to, and they weaponized it for themselves. That's how I look at it. Like Shepard Fairey built his entire art campaign off of fighting against, being overwhelmed with advertising. When we were growing up in the '90s, the billboards, the commercials, there was this real resistance in the punk community against advertising. We're being sold to. Then advertising kind of shifted. The name of it just kind of became more marketing, branding. Still same thing. Advertising. It's just slicker. It's just like a slicker lie that we're selling you. So we subject young people to this, and they grow up, but they're savvier to it, right? So when I watch TV with my kids, and some type of advertorial comes on, it's like not really commercial, not really like the feature film we're watching, but something weird is happening. I'm like, what are they selling you, right? Like I pointed out, like we address it. They're like, they're selling me that soda. I'm like, that's absolutely right. So they're hyper aware when they're being sold to. So we gave them all those skills. Like we gave them all that nuclear arsenal essentially, and now they're like, all right, now we're going to turn this around and break the entire system apart, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is how we used to sell a T-shirt. Now you're using it to sell
That's true.
a movement or an idea. Like,
I always
thank you for
wondered,
that.
like with Christianity, why are they still on megaphones, man? You know what I'm saying? They got to step up the advertising, fam.
Yeah.
Christianity, step up the advertising, bro. Y'all still yelling out Jesus with the big ass
Christians have
signs.
always had a really hard time remaining relevant to culture in that sense.
Yeah. Okay, let's take some calls. We're gonna get some calls, guys. I want to hear from you guys. This is the part I really haven't done actually with a one-on-one guest is take calls. So I'm kind of excited for this. This is the first time we're doing this, where we have a guest on and you guys are able to ask questions. Because the other times we've done it, it's been with the usual co-host. So this is going to be cool. I don't know. I hope people don't freeze up again to get too shy. We got two Changs. Okay, cool. This is one of our regular callers, two Changs.
Two Changs, I love it.
Okay. Hello? Two Changs.
Two Changs is actually hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. Hello? We having difficulty?
Live callers. Very risky.
I know. This happens. It's part of
very risky. Oh,
yeah, we have a 1 hour show with the gray area, and then we take live video calls, and we've had doctors and experts come in with some technical difficulties, so it's been a learning process.
Hold on.
Hello?
Yo, can you hear me, guys?
Oh, there he is.
There.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi.
Yo. So I don't really have any questions or anything, but I just wanted to say thank you to Bobby because I read his book for like twice, cover to cover. And
Wow.
Thank you.
yeah, man.
Twice, huh? You just didn't get it the first time you read it.
It's that hard to understand.
I didn't understand a bunch
Thank
of
you.
words. No, man, for sure. It really it motivated me to be more focused and intentional about what I want to do for my business plan moving forward. And that's to start a cafe, but also make it kind of a community space for a lot of people, and also get streetwear and street art involved, because in Baltimore we have a lot of really awesome and talented artists, but a lot of them just aren't getting that big of a spotlight, and a lot of people even in our own city don't know that these people live here.
Yeah.
Is that something you're already implementing? Like you're starting to create this business, this cafe?
Yeah, actually in an hour I have a meeting with some potential business partners to like really start moving forward for it.
Yay! That's awesome. I don't know if you. I addressed it in the book. I was born in Baltimore.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Ellicott City.
Yeah, right.
But I do know there is a lot of talent coming out from that part of the world. This is also, look, this is an interesting time for a lot of different reasons. Someone asked me yesterday if they were from a small town in the Midwest, and when do I make that transition to moving to LA or New York? I was like, I don't think that's even a pertinent question anymore. I think if anything, people are considering life outside of the cities. That's definitely happening in the Bay. Everyone's leaving San Francisco.
Yeah.
You can pretty much stay put. We're all staying put right now anyways. we're all participating in the digital space. You can do that from wherever you are. And your community of Baltimore, I promise you, needs you, appreciates you, and celebrates you more than LA ever would. This is not like, I don't think people, it used to be, you have to go to LA to make it. It's not that way anymore by any means.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was a shame when you have an amazing artist locally who feels like they got to leave to do something. That happened a lot with Korean American talent in LA. They'd all go to Korea.
Yeah.
It's
true. Yeah.
They'd all go to Korea, and then next thing you know, we just didn't brew any like amazing next generation of Korean American talent here, you know, and they just go there and learn Korean more to get, but it's sad. I mean, I get it because there wasn't much of they didn't see Korean American rappers killing it. Yeah. So they're like, how the fuck are we going to make money here? We got to learn the language and kill it. But now you can do that and it's needed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, our whole, or at least for me, the idea behind all of the stuff that we wanted to create was more of like, we really wanted to have a space for food, for drinks, and for like live music. But when the pandemic happened, and after I read the book, and my friend's now reading your book too, who's actually going to be part of this partnership with us, we both, all three agreed that we need to like, one, downscale it to make it seem that, one, it's safe for people to be in and out of there. So we don't want to have this giant, huge venue, but we also still wanted to very much have it so that the community can be involved and our community can be involved. So we're also talking about creating it so that there's a digital aspect to our business, where instead of coming in, so like our whole thing too is that we all love streetwear, and we want that to be a part of it too. So we're like, all right, how can we do that? Oh, let's do the bonobos model, where it's like you can get, our homie to fit you and like look at you and be like, all right, this is what I think you should go with. These are the styles we should put together for you. And then have that be like, all right, go online and you can order this, or you can order this through us and we can put it all together for you. And while you're doing all that, you can also get like some really good food, some really good drinks.
Well, let me ask you something too, Changs. Are you afraid to start a business right now in this current like climate and economic
That's a good question.
economy right now?
There's not, I feel like there's just never a good time to start a business. So if you don't just start doing it, it's never going to happen, Do
you agree, Bobby?
I'm
not trying to discourage him.
One of the rules, speaking of blue ocean strategy, someone just mentioned that one of the rules in business is that if it is a bad time to go into business, it's probably the best time. Because, it's kind of like real estate. It's, buy when no one's, or whatever it is. So the same thing applies for business. There's so much opportunity out there. Look, there's the same amount of money that exists out in the world. It's not like there's like less or more money. There's just like the money's there. It's just moving around. It's in different pockets. And so maybe your industry could be dead, but look, if you ask Jeff Bezos, it's the best time to be in business right now, right? I know a lot of people who are bottom feeding right now and just exploiting the hell out of this opportunity and making a lot of money. And a lot of real estate people are going to be like that over the next year when people get evicted or have to sell, leave their homes, buildings.
Same thing happened with the LA riots, right? Like, didn't that one dude buy out like all the K-Town real estate? Jameson properties.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying to do that, but there are opportunities opening up where in different ways where people aren't thinking or seeing. PCMW just asked if I'd read the, and I don't know if this is PCMW who I'm thinking if it's PCMW.
Oh yeah, this is the homie Peter.
It's Pete, right?
Yeah.
Hi Pete. That's Pete Wentz, everybody. If he read that New York Times sweatpants article, I didn't read it, and I feel bad because everyone sent it to me to read, and I didn't read it. But it's, from what I've gleaned, it's that basically that's all people want to wear now, or sweatpants. That's kind of the future of fashion.
Well, Tu Chang, so are you saying that you feel like it might be a better time to even go into business right now?
Kind of, yeah. Like, you guys made a good point. Like, the real estate for everything is really low. And right now in Baltimore, there's, I think within the pandemic, 3 or 4 other smaller pop-up, like, kind of like takeout windows to go situations popped up in the city. because real estate was so low, because like, you know, people who were initially creating these giant food halls and only renting them out to people who already had a lot of revenue or other investors and money tied into their business be a part of that, they're now letting just about anybody come in.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, another thing, I don't know if this even relates, but another way I've been looking at business this year, which is not original to me by any means, but the way that everything is moving in terms of trends. For example, at the beginning, what was the first thing that everybody needed was hand sanitizer, right? So everyone is moving in these kind of mass herds, like seismic shifts, where we all kind of collectively do the same thing, and then we abuse the thing, and then we need something to fix the abuse, right? So with hand sanitizer, everyone gets a hand sanitizer, but what are you going to need in a month when everyone's using hand sanitizer and abuse the hell out of it?
Yeah.
You need lotion, hand lotion, right? So then you should make a hand. So you have to think like that right now. Like, what is the thing that's happening right now that everyone is abusing and needing a lot of? Could be spending time online in digital chats and digital podcasts. If we're all doing that and abusing it, what is going to be the salve or the antidote for that? Because at a certain point, we're going to be exhausted and fatigued from it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some type of mental health wellness thing that's going to, right? So maybe that's the opportunity next year that people are going to need more than anything. I think it is. I think therapy, mindfulness, mental health is going to be explosive over the next 2 to 5 years.
Interesting.
Right? Because we're going through so much suffering and trauma right now that we're not even correctly processing, that when we finally get the time to sit back and think about it all, we're going to be like, oh my God, I haven't even gotten past the fact that Kobe's dead.
Yeah.
Right? Like we didn't even get a moment to think about that one, and this happened and this, and then my job's gone, and oh my God, Trump's elected again. Okay, I'm just trying to hang on.
Yeah.
But there will come a time when everything slows down and stops.
Well, look out for those Fun with Dumb stress balls dropping next week, guys.
You are ahead of the curve.
Well, Two Changs, thanks for calling, bro.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Much
Good
love.
luck. Good luck with your cafe too, man.
Good luck.
You guys have a good day.
I want to take some more callers. I want to take a couple more. We're going to go on for about 10, 15 more minutes, and then we're going to lose Bobby forever. So please call in right now. This man is a very wise man that I've taken notes from, in the way you operate and you live your life. So, much respect to you, Bobby. Definitely appreciate you and everything you do. Is there any callers or what? Man, these focals are shy. You usually call like a motherfucker.
Also, who calls anybody these days?
I know, right?
They're like, "Can I text in?" Yes, you can.
You
Right
guys
here
can,
in the
yeah.
chat.
You know what? You guys can just ask questions in the chat if you guys
Yes.
don't want to call in. I actually didn't give that
I
option.
can answer these questions.
Yeah, let's do
There's
it.
good ones.
So, if the Hundreds could collab with any brand or person, who would it be?
I feel like I've gotten to do almost everyone that's on my bucket list, but you'd be surprised there's still many, much more. An obvious one would be Nike, right? I think we've worked with almost every major footwear brand, Adidas, Puma, Reebok, Fila, except for Nike. So we work with Nike in other capacities with our food festival and stuff like that, but to actually make a piece of footwear with them would be
If
great.
you think of like a collab or something you want to do you immediately just like reach out and try to make it happen?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
and then sometimes there's Nike set up like Fort Knox where I know people there, and the word is in, and everyone knows. Obviously, like we would love for that to happen, but there isn't like a hotline or an email to hit
Right.
up to ask about that. But
Just timing.
sometimes there are. Sometimes there's like an Astro Boy or a Superman that I think of, and I'm like, there's actually an email that I can just hit
Nice.
up and ask.
How was your? Have you ever thought about throwing in the towel?
Yes, all the time. I thought about it a lot more than ever this year.
Oh, really? Like, you just thought of this year, like maybe this is it.
Yeah, there were
Really?
moments, and not by my own volition even, but just how are we going to get through March? How are we going to get through April? We're a small business. Depending on how you define small business, we're
Right.
still a small business, and most small businesses in America, we are only sitting on enough cash reserves to last us a month or two, right? And so if there's nothing coming in for a couple months, you disappear. Like most restaurants, the average restaurant, I think is like on a 2 to 3 cash reserve basis, which is why most of your favorite restaurants are disappearing. If they haven't already, they're probably on hard times, so please support them. And so that reality was really made clear for us starting in February and March of there may come a point in time this year where we don't have this brand or business anymore. What would that look like? And then you have to start thinking about life afterwards and what that's all about. And it's hard because the brand is so much of my identity and my existence. That's my SEO, like who am I without the brand?
I want to ask you this personally, because as an independent artist too, who's had like a roller coaster of like relevancy in the culture too.
Yeah.
And Hundreds is the same way, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And it could be very depressing too, if you really start living in your headspace about it. And how do you just continue to, you could be at your lowest point of popularity, your highest point or whatnot. How do you continue to tell yourself, like, I am important to this culture?
Yeah. I can bring it back to a lesson that I talk to my kids about all the time, because I think that their generation is going to have to cope with this more than even we did, but the younger generation. But they're really going to have to deal with this idea of crowdsourced validation, that they aren't actually intact or substantive or substantial without a bunch of people approving them, upvoting them, liking their page or whatever it is. And so we were really lucky in the fact that we started in 2003, so roughly 6 or 7 years before social media started. A lot of our self-worth and understanding of what success was inherent and rooted within. It was intrinsic, right? It wasn't extrinsic. It wasn't coming from the outside. It was intrinsic. It was, this feels good to me, and so it's a win. I know I didn't make money. I may have lost money on that decision, but it felt good to me, so that's a win. That's a move forward for the brand. And just always being mindful and respectful of the brand and making sure that it's constantly being edified instead of eroding. Like, every decision we're making was going to reinforce the brand. I didn't care how much money we made, how many customers we had, which stores continued to carry us. It didn't matter to me. I was just like, this feels right for the brand. It's the right thing. And we had 6 or 7 years to cultivate that type of mentality around brand and business making, so that we were pretty much equipped to deal with what came with social media, of highs and lows, of like people like or don't like. None of that actually matters to me at all. Someone just asked a question about Justin Bieber. I had this little situation with Justin Bieber a week ago.
I didn't even know about this.
Oh, yeah, we can get into it. But out of it, I've gotten over 10,000, 12,000 followers in like 6 days, okay?
Wow.
I don't want
I did see that. I
don't, everyone's like,
the bomb and the thing, his logo, right?
Whole thing, the confusion. But everyone's like, oh, that's good. You're big on social media, Justin Bieber. I'm like, that does nothing for me. That doesn't reinforce or edify my brand in any way. That's not a win. And so I talk about this with my kids all the time of, just understanding where your value comes from. It doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. The only people whose opinions matter are your friends, your family, and the people close to you. Fuck everybody else, whether it's good or bad, right? If a bunch of people are celebrating and praising you, which they did in our early years, we were the hot new brand in LA. Everyone, dude, we used to call it the hundreds card. There wasn't actually a physical card, but you can walk anywhere in this town and be like, oh, I'm with the hundreds. And like, you're getting laid, you're getting your meal comped, your free drinks. I was like, none of that mattered to me, because every night I would go back and I had my family. Every night I had my friends. I'm like, that's all that matters. All this extra people praising me, that's temporary. People hating me, that's temporary.
It could really fuck you up in the head too, right?
It really can.
All right, let's take a couple. Is there one more caller? Let's take one more caller, and then we'll do just a rapid round of these questions on the wall here. All right, who do we got? NM? Hello, NM.
What's up, guys?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I do got a couple questions for Bobby, and
sure.
Love your stuff, Bobby. I also read your book. I saw you when you came to Portland to do your signing at Powell's.
Thank you. That was a fun one.
That feels like an eternity ago.
It was almost a year ago. It's sad.
And I guess one of my questions is like, just thinking back to reading your book and thinking about like all the economic stuff that's going on right now. Like, do you feel, are you worried about like a similar like type of thing that happened with like the 2008 recession? Because I know that was hard for you all. And I'm wondering if you feel like there
Yeah.
could be something like that.
Yeah. Yes, I'm definitely worried about this looming recession, which is happening. I can't even say it's looming. It's happening, right? One of my really close friends just told me that they're moving their family out of state. They've lived in LA their whole lives, and they're going to have to leave. Their businesses are closed. So this is very real. Even there's and in this economic shift, there's a lot of winners and losers, but even the winners, you're not winning if everyone else is losing. It's also not a world. Oh, okay, so you have a yacht, but all your
Right.
friends don't live here anymore. How about that?
Right,
So
right.
like everyone is losing in this situation. This is much more dire and urgent than what's happened in 2008. That recession was bad in itself. Streetwear was largely insulated from it because of the aforementioned things of young people just kind of don't care and they spend money anyways. But so streetwear, we got hit with it really hard a few years later. Didn't hit us till like 2011, 2012, and so I think this time what's going to happen is I'm really worried, to be honest, about just the entire economic collapse. I think it's a very real thing. I think if you have a job right now, be really grateful for that job, even if you hate it. I come from a place where I'm always preaching, follow your heart and your passions. I'm like Korean Gary Vaynerchuk or something. I don't subscribe to that type of thinking right now. I think if you have a job, hold on to your job, appreciate you have it, conserve, save money, take care of your people. Let's revisit this conversation of chasing your dreams in a year. Okay? We just all have to get past this next year. We got to survive and do our best to support our community, take care of ourselves, just get through the next year, and then let's talk about it then. But in a lot of ways, what's really scary to think about is that we never really recovered from 2008, right? Especially in fashion and retail. Like retail stores, we never recovered the way that it was pre-2008. Like pre-2008, like shopping, physical stores, like all that stuff, like we never recovered, and especially with the advent of e-com. So we weren't even back to where we were pre-2008 when this recession hit. And so I don't think that's ever really going to come back in the same way ever again. I just think the entire thing is completely shifted, and we have to think of different ways to make and do what we do. The prior caller who's talking about more of a community-based space, I think there's something to that. I think that's going to be the future of what business looks like. It's going to be more social-minded. It's going to be less about making money or valuating your company at a certain dollar amount and more about how you are contributing to the overall well-being of your communities. Like, hopefully we can quantify our success in that way. But as far as like what traditional business look like and what profits look like we kind of have to leave all that stuff behind.
Right.
I think, in order, if we want to feel at peace and some type of normalcy and this is okay, because we're never going to be making that kind of money again. It's never going to see that kind of success again, not for the short time anyways. So we have to kind of change the goalposts on what it means to be valuable and to be successful in this world.
I like what you said about redefining the chasing your dream and revisiting that. Do you sound like an annoying person if you talk about chasing your dream right now? Like, is it?
I'll be honest, I'm friends with Gary Vee. It kind of bothers me
Yeah.
when I hear a lot of that right now. I'm like,
What does it feel like to you, like, in particular?
it feels a little bit off key, out of touch.
like not reading the
Tone
room.
deaf?
Yeah, tone deaf.
Yeah, the people are struggling, man. There's so many homeless people out on like literally. I live in a residential neighborhood near Venice.
Yeah.
There's homeless people camping on my sidewalk.
Yeah. No, for
Okay, like
town too. Every other
chase your
block.
dreams. You can make.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy would just love to have a job.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's like
Like,
show them.
these people. It's not that they don't want to work. They want to have a job. These people got evicted. These people lost their jobs.
Right.
Successful, smart people.
Right.
Not even like these people are real human. Like
People
that's,
who
and
were
if
once
it's-
in your position too.
Yeah.
It's
And so, yeah, they would love to. Right now, they just want to have a job. So
right.
just hold on to the jobs that you do have, because none of that is promised. My job is not promised. I'm grateful every day. Every night we pray at dinner, and I'm like, God, thank you. I have a job. I have a job. I have a
That's
job.
amazing, yeah.
So let's just be thankful for that. Someone just said this turned into therapy for Bobby. All
It
my
is.
conversations do that.
I love that, man. I love that. I needed to hear a lot of this too. We're just gonna thank you, Anna, for the call. Appreciate you. We're just gonna go through a couple of these quick. This is your last chance, last 5 minutes with Bobby. Ask your questions right now in the chat, and we will just get through them right now, guys. Bobby, thanks so much for coming by, man. Appreciate you. I always feel like you're like my big bro. Young, if you will.
Oh God,
you're the young. You're the young.
I love it because I'm a middle brother, and my younger brother, I would love. I don't think he would ever say that.
No,
I always
sure.
try to give him advice. He's like, yeah.
I have a younger sister who would never call me Opa for sure. If I'd be like, call me Opa, she'd be like, shut the fuck up. Okay, we go. How do you stay encouraging for your kids during this time?
Oh, yeah. We try to be mindful of what we have, but we also we do the game of what's the best thing to happen today, what's the worst thing to happen. I don't think encouraging and this false sense of positivity and like the world is happy, joy is super detrimental.
Yeah.
So when I'm having a bad day or I'm worried about something, I'm like, kids, I'm really worried about this. I got bad news. Like I don't know what this means.
Right.
This just happened on TV, or there's this fire over here. Like I'm scared too.
Yeah,
like,
that assures them that you're the same. You're human too, just like them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. What is something that you feel you learned about yourself during this time?
For myself, that I have everything I need. Yeah. That the people I've spent the last 17 years of my career collecting people. Traveling the world, collecting friends, building my network, more social media followers, more customers. I have all the customers I need. I have all the friends I need. I already have them.
That's a very comforting feeling too, right? In this time, and feeling safe.
And I don't have a lot of like real friends, but the friends that I have, like they're within arm's length. Every night I sit down with my family and I eat dinner. And I've learned so much more about my kids and my wife this year that I would have never been afforded because I would have been traveling this entire year. So there's oceans of people in front of you at all times that have yet to be explored and understood. Like, spend time with them. You don't need 5 more friends. Spend 5 times the time with your friend in front of you, Like, you already have it all.
True. All right, one quick advice for creatives. Because this could be just like a extensive thing.
Oh, what's an advice for creatives? It takes time.
Time. Okay. And now you got a lot of time right now, guys.
You have so much time. But it'll take even more time. It's just
on top of this.
Patience, man. Patience.
I feel like, do you think this quarantine situation kind of gives you this forced discipline as a creative for you to like stay home and create though? Like,
oh my God, I have so much guilt associated with it because of what you just said. It kind of like gave me chills when you were like, you have all the time, so now you should be doing all your endeavors right now. You have no excuses. That is like the most crippling feeling where I'm like, I have all the time. I have no more excuses. Now I'm working on my next book. I'm like trying to write. I'm like, I only got 3 pages out. What's wrong with me? And the guilt of that, that is so hard. So just going easy on yourself and knowing that a lot of the creative process is really doing nothing.
True.
Right? And just like listening, waiting for the ideas and inspiration to hit. And it can take a long time, but you just have to be patient. Don't beat yourself up for it.
Okay, and this is the last question. What are some lasting social changes that will stay after the virus is over?
Ooh, I think we cannot ignore a lot of what has been dredged up. I don't know. I don't think I'm prepared to answer that question yet. I have no idea. I would hope that most of it sticks around, but I hope that people who felt voiceless and disempowered before feel like they do have some type of power in this world now.
Yeah, and a support system
a support system.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe if people can feel now that they're not alone, and that if they're feeling a certain kind of way, that they know that others will be there to catch them. There's allies. So hopefully that.
Awesome. Yo, Bobby, thank you so much. Love you, bro. It's so weird because we ran into each other in Paris like kind of before everything happened. Like when was that? Winter or something, or fall of last year?
Yeah, it was like almost a year ago.
Yeah.
I keep doing that, dude. I just tweeted this the other day, but I always think like fall and winter, like fall 2019. That was like
Yeah.
a few months ago. But it's almost a year. Like we're in September almost.
Yeah, we ran into each. He surprised me. Like I was like in the museum in Paris, and he just like ran up behind me. I was like, "What the fuck?"
And we're supposed to be all quiet.
Yeah. And then he came out to my show, and it was pretty lit. It was fun in Paris. But Bobby Levy, thank you so much, man. I think a lot of the people here really
Thank you, everyone.
appreciated that. So what you want to plug something or what?
Oh gosh, no, just thank you for listening, man. Like
Support the
appreciate-
hundreds, man.
Oh, thank
Support
you.
the hundreds,
Yeah,
because if you
thank you.
support hundreds, you're supporting messages that are coming out of this man's mouth, and I support everything you're talking
you.
about, bro. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Tune in next week for another episode of Fun with Dumb. Peace.